Asus Zenfone 7 Pro is a high-end smartphone that brings back their signature flip camera design, this time with a triple camera setup. It looks nice, but is it worth the €800 price tag? Let's find out in our full review. The Zenfone 7 Pro is a great-looking flagship phone that's a bit on the larger side of things. Ours has a multi-hued pastel white finish, which is pretty nice looking. The phone is made of Gorilla Glass on the front and back, with an aluminum frame. In the hand, it's rather hefty, weighing in at 230 grams. This lends a premium feel, but it's not the easiest phone to wield one-handed. The most unique thing about the Zenfone 7 Pro's design is its flip camera mechanism, this year with 3 cameras built in. The setup moves from the back to the front of the device when you want to take a selfie. The flip mechanism is made of the same material as last year, but it's rated to be twice as durable this time around, and it has a new, more powerful motor. Besides taking selfies, you can set the cameras to different customizable positions to allow for some interesting camera angles. As you might suspect, with all these moving parts, the Zenfone 7 Pro doesn't have any IP-rated waterproofing, so you'll need to be careful if you're taking selfies out by the pool. The 7 Pro's display is a nice upgrade over last year's. It's an AMOLED this time around at 6.67 inches, and it has a 1080p resolution. Plus, there's a fast 90Hz refresh rate too. This display looks great. You don't have a distracting notch or hole punch cutout thanks to the flip cam. And the high refresh rate means that the UI and supported content looks much smoother to the eye. You get deep blacks, and colors can be tuned to be rather accurate in settings. And the brightness of the display is very good too. We measured up to around 530 nits maximum with the slider, and got a boost up to 740 nits in auto mode when in bright conditions. There is an always-on display, but it's more of an always-on clock. You do get notification alerts though, thanks to an LED located on the bottom. You might expect an under-display fingerprint reader from a high-end AMOLED phone, but the Zenfone 7 Pro has a side-mounted capacitive one instead that doubles as the power button. It's fast and reliable. You can also program the button as a smart key to give you quick access to a specified app or function. For audio, the Zenfone 7 Pro has a stereo speaker setup, with one bottom-firing loudspeaker and the other up at the top doubling as the earpiece. They're not quite as loud as the speakers on last year's model, but still earned a score of good in our tests. And the sound quality is balanced, with defined highs and a bit of bass.
Close the window and your eyes.
You don't get a 3.5mm jack here though, unlike last year's model. To plug in traditional headphones, you'll need to use a USB-C adapter. At least storage is expandable here, on top of the 256 gigs of storage on board the device. The Zenfone 7 Pro's interface is the latest Zen UI 7, based on Android 10. It's pretty close to stock Android in appearance. You can keep your apps in a drawer or on the home screen. There are some proprietary features, such as a modified quick toggles layout you can enable, which is easier to reach with one hand. OptiFlex is a proprietary app launch optimizer that works in the usual way, caching certain resources, oftentimes in RAM, so that they can remain easily accessible to the most used apps. And just like on Asus's ROG phones, there's a Game Genie overlay which you can access from within your games. This gives you notification and performance controls, as well as a floating toolbar that shows you real-time performance stats. As far as the actual performance goes, the Zenfone 7 Pro has a top-of-the-line Snapdragon 865 Plus chipset. This is opposed to the regular Snapdragon 865 and the vanilla Zenfone 7. So you get slightly faster clock speeds and faster peak performance here on the Pro. This is some of the best chipset performance you can find on an Android phone, but the regular Zenfone 7 isn't far behind. And both phones have 5G network connectivity too, with the longest lists of supported bands we've seen yet. The Zenfone 7 Pro has the same 5000 mAh battery capacity as last year's model. It's one of the largest you can find on a flagship-grade phone, and battery life is great. The Zenfone 7 Pro earned an endurance rating of 99 hours with its screen at the 90Hz refresh rate, and 110 hours in our tests with the screen at 60Hz. The charging speed is very good as well. With the bundled 30-watt charger, we were able to charge the phone from a dead battery to 56% in half an hour. There is no wireless charging here though. If you're not in a hurry, there is a slow charge feature which caps the charging at 10 or 18 watts. You can also set charging limits, or make an overnight charging schedule. This helps keep better care of your battery in the long run so it ages better. Now let's dive more into the flip camera setup. There are 3 cameras housed within: a 64-megapixel quad-Bayer main cam, a 12-megapixel ultra-wide-angle cam with dual-pixel autofocus that can take macro shots, and an 8-megapixel 3x telephoto zoom. One of the main differences from the vanilla Zenfone 7 is that on the Pro model you get OIS on the main and telephoto cameras. In daylight, 16-megapixel photos from the Zenfone 7 Pro's main cam are great. There's plenty of detail, and we like the conservative processing and natural-looking colors. The dynamic range is good, though we did see some clipped highlights from time to time. You can shoot in the full 64-megapixel resolution, which can get you a bit of extra fine detail. The dynamic range is more narrow though, and you get more noise. Portraits on the Zenfone 7 Pro are shot with the main cam, but with a 1.6x digital zoom. They still come out at 16 megapixels, and you can see the results of the upscaling involved. The detail level isn't great and faces look soft. At least the subject isolation is good. 12 megapixel shots from the ultra-wide-angle cam are solid. You get good sharpness and detail and well-corrected barrel distortion. We do wish the dynamic range was wider, but the autofocus means that your subjects will always come out sharp. Plus, thanks to the autofocus, you can shoot close-ups with the ultra-wide cam, up to as close as 4 centimeters. These come out quite nice. 3x zoom shots from the telephoto cam come out in 8 megapixels, and we're impressed by how sharp and detailed they are. You get a pretty similar color rendition to the main cams, the noise level is acceptable, and dynamic range is alright. Since the Zenfone 7 Pro uses the entire camera setup for selfies, these days you won't find a better camera phone for selfie shots. Photos from the main cam come out with abundant detail and spot-on skin tones. Dynamic range is excellent, especially when compared to selfie cameras on other phones. Plus, since the sensor is rather large, you can achieve a natural bokeh sort of look with a shallow depth of field. You can also turn on the dedicated portrait mode, which gives much better results than when taken from the backside. The photos aren't cropped and upscaled here, so they're noticeably sharper. The ultra-wide does a decent job for selfie purposes, but it's not quite as capable as the main cam. The detail level isn't as good, and the skin colors are a bit off. But the extra wide coverage comes handy for group shots, and Asus also claims there is face distortion correction so everybody looks their best. Selfies can be taken with a telephoto camera too, though I'm not sure why you'd want to, outside of some special artistic purposes, or if you just want to check out your pores. In low light, the Zenfone 7 Pro has an auto night mode behavior toggled on by default. If for some reason you turn that off, plain photo mode shots come out soft, with limited dynamic range. The ultra-wide shots have more aggressive noise reduction, so noise is smoothed out, as well as fine detail. With night mode turned on, things are improved considerably, with both the main and the ultra-wide cam. Highlights are much better developed, and shadows gain some actual detail. There's also a 7-second exposure option for the night mode, as opposed to the default 4. We didn't see any meaningful differences between the two modes though. On the telephoto camera, there's no night mode of any sort. Its photos are decent and can be used in a pinch, though if you look closer, you will see some softness and noise. The Zenfone 7 Pro is very capable at recording videos. Like many flagship phones coming out these days, it can record video in 8K resolution. The detail level is decent here, but the file size is huge, and it's hard to find something to play it back on. 4K video from the main camera is highly detailed, with low noise and moderate sharpening. Colors look natural, contrast is good, and dynamic range is reasonably wide. The ultra-wide-angle cam's 4K videos have a more desaturated color rendition, but the detail level is still very good. The telephoto camera can only record zoomed video in 1080p at 30 FPS, but it does it really well. The detail is great, there's no noise, and the footage is nicely contrasty. With this flip camera, the Zenfone 7 Pro is unmatched in its selfie video recording capability. However, at an arm's length, the slightly cropped field of view in video recording means you'll have a hard time fitting even your head in the frame. So when handheld, you might need to stick to the ultra-wide to have enough coverage. EIS is available in all modes, and is probably somewhat helped by OIS on the main and telephoto cams. The Zenfone 7 Pro stabilizes video very well, removing almost all signs of walking-induced shake. Pans are generally very smooth too. There's also a hyper-steady stabilization which only works in 1080p. These come out even smoother, looking as if you're floating. So that's the Asus Zenfone 7 Pro. You get a beautiful looking design, with a unique and versatile flip camera that performs great, especially for selfies. Plus there's an awesome chipset, a high refresh rate AMOLED screen, nice stereo speakers, and great battery life with fast charging, all for around 800 euros. It looks like a great package, but the only thing is there's also the vanilla Zenfone 7 to consider, and it's at least 100 euros cheaper. With that phone you get almost the same deal, except you don't get OIS on the main and telephoto cameras, and the chipset is missing the boosted clock speed of the 865 Plus. So overall, I would say that the Zenfone 7 Pro is an excellent phone worth recommending, but if you don't mind a slight downgrade, you'd save some money by grabbing the regular Zenfone 7. Thanks for watching guys, stay safe and see you on the next one.